On a cart. Second thing, we've got, I left the key on. Vehicles in neutral, or at least the key is on far enough that I can turn the steering wheel back and forth so my steering wheel is not locked. All right, that's kind of a key component. If you leave the key on too far, it turns the dash lights on, runs all the computers, kills the customer's battery. So turn the key on far enough so that you can move the steering wheel, but not kill the customer's battery. If you do need to leave the key on that long, put a battery charger on the customer's car. Any questions, guys? All right, so far we're pretty good. I've got it so that I can get at my hardware here. I've got my S-hook already mounted underneath the wheel well here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use some air tools and make things a little bit quicker today. We're just going to kind of pretend for a moment that this is older hardware. I should check my direction. Pull the bolts out, caliper, and hang it. One of the big things I see is guys taking the caliper instead of hanging on S-hook. They mount them up here, and as soon as you start shaking the car around, the caliper falls and it pulls on the hose. Now, you don't see what happens, but the inside of the hose starts to rip, and then we run into the dragging brake concern, okay? So just kind of be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull the pads out. Do a quick kind of visual inspection of my pads, and right away I can see there's a little bit of discoloration. This one down here looks really clean. This one up here has got some grease prints on it, okay? So right away there's a problem. Whoever installed the brand new brake pads, they had greasy fingers, and they put their little greasy digits all over them. Now we've got contaminated linings. Here's the deal, guys. Not only will it create a grabbing brake concern, but grease on the linings, grease will burn into the steel rotor. When that happens, it actually hardens the steel. It changes the makeup of the steel. All right, it creates a harder steel. When the steel is harder, that grease burns into the brake pad, and it changes the molecules in the brake pad. All of a sudden, now I've got a harder brake pad. So my coefficient of friction just changed, all because I left a grease print or grease on the rotor. Okay? That's why grease is important to remove. Make sure brake fluid, your hands are clean, all those sorts of things. So we got to clean this pad. We've got to get these grease prints off that pad. All right? So I'm going to kind of set that one aside so we remember to do that. Okay? Next thing I need to do is I need to remove this bracket. Okay? So I'm going to get behind there. Got my breaker bar, or large ratchet in place. Some pretty good leverage here. I'm going to break both of them loose, because if I just loosen one of them and take it all the way out, the problem I'm going to run into is that caliper bracket's going to want to shift around on it. Okay? Now what did you notice? That came out hard the whole way, right? Want to know why? Tell me why, guys. Loctite. Loctite was on there. That's a good thing. Brackets off. Pull the other bolt out. And guess what? I got to clean these bolts. I got to get the Loctite out of the threads here in order to reinstall those, don't I? Otherwise, my torque won't be right, which affects torque. That affects how tight the bracket is, and that affects how long the brake bracket stays in place, okay? Caliper bracket stays in place. One of the things I'm seeing on clips, for instance, on the bottom clips here, is they're dry. So it might be hard to see with the camera, but there is no lubrication on these clips at all. Now, if I were to take this, flip it over, and I look at these clips, again, it's harder to see, but these are lubricated. All right, so this morning I went through and I actually showed them how to clean the bracket and lubricate these pad clips here. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to pull the bottom ones off, get those out of the way. And then we're going to grab a couple different tools. First tool I might use a wire brush. All right, and I'll work this back and forth, trying to get rid of the debris out of there. Wire brush may not take it down as far as it needs to go. All right, so if that's the case, then I got to get some other cleaning tools. So let me grab a couple cleaning tools here. Die grinder. One of the first places I'm going to clean is this flat area here and the flat area over here on both sides, there and there. I'm using just kind of light pressure. I'm going to move back and forth. I'm going to try and keep things level. I'm not using the full throttle on the cleaning tool. Got the heavy debris off. You can see it coming off. The problem becomes I can't get this tool in to clean up down here. All right? So I can use it to catch my flat spots here and here, and you can see for the most part, those are pretty shiny now. Okay? They look clean. I'm not trying to grind steel. I'm just trying to clean up the debris, the rust. So now I'm going to use an air sander next. And again, not full throttle, just kind of softly cleaning. I'm going to work it kind of back and forth. And I'm going to try and keep things level. I can remove a lot of material really, really fast. Okay? You can start to see on the screen there, it's cleaning up, but it hasn't cleaned up the entire edge yet. Okay? I can actually flip this tool over because the sandpaper rides closer to one edge. And now I've cleaned up both edges in there. Just enough. I don't want to grind steel and create a rattle problem. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, so it might be a little harder to see. Flip it over. All right, and this is roughly what my bracket should look like, okay? All right, now I'm prepped and I'm ready to put my clips in. Here's a problem: if we don't clean those underneath those clips, what's going to happen is the clip won't sit down there far enough, and your brake pad will be too tight in these clips. And therefore your brake pad won't back away from the rotor, and you get, what? Dragging brakes. I hope that's what you said, okay? Because that's what will happen. So we've got to make sure it's cleaned underneath these clips. By the way, these clips typically only go in one way, so make sure that when you install them, you're installing those the proper way, okay? They're brand new. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lubricate those, okay? I'm going to use the Sil Glide on these clips here. You can use the paste, ceramic paste, if you want. I'm using Sil Glide today. I'm going to show you roughly how much to put on. That's it right there. Okay, very, very small amount. Then I'm going to take and I'm going to work that Sil Glide in. But I don't want to go where that rotor is going to be. Okay, so I want to kind of stay away from the rotor. Top of the clip, where the pad's going to ride, and the back side. If there's a lot of extra there, just go ahead and wipe some off. It should really just be a thin coat. And this is the probably most important piece, if you get lubrication where the rotor's going to ride, inside here, right, you get that caliper grease in there, make sure you wipe it off. Okay, get it out of there, because what's going to happen is you're going to slip this over your rotor, this is going to move around, and all of a sudden that grease gets on your rotor. That's what I'm seeing. That happens, you're pulling this entire brake system apart, and you're redoing the job again, because it ain't right. Okay? It ain't right. Ain't right. I use the word ain't right. Ain't you got it yet? Okay. Good? I'm almost done with my bracket. I've got to pull the pins. So I'm going to take a look. I'm going to pull the first pin, drop it out, pull the second pin. That was my top one. I'm going to match my pins up for a moment. So I take a look at my pins. Pins are the same size. There's no distinction. There's nothing different between the two pins. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to wipe the old grease off. And it looks like it's a fairly clean grease, so they must have cleaned it. Good to go. So we got them nice and clean. If there was any rough pitting, rust, anything, I'd go right to the wire wheel, clean them up. But they're pretty good to go. Now instead of lubricating the pins and making a big mess of my fingers, I'm going to actually take Seal Glide. I'm going to work smarter, not harder. And I'm going to put Seal Glide right in the boot. And I put a pretty liberal amount in there. Then I'm going to take that pin, kind of work that pin, kind of twist, and push down at the same time. And what you're doing is you're eliminating the air pocket. By twisting and pushing down, you need to eliminate the air pocket that's in there so that you can compress these so you can get your caliper lined up. Okay, we have any questions yet? All right, my caliper bracket is just about ready to go. I'm going to pull my brand new rotor out of the package. In this case, this is a brand new rotor. But we're going to go through the cleaning process real quick with my brand new rotor. So I'm going to take a field trip. All right, and hopefully airplay works. Notice how I'm grabbing the rotor. This is habit for me. I try not to grab the rotor like this. Why? Keep your fingers off that surface. The more I put my hands on this rotor surface, the more I risk contaminating it. Right? Ready to go for a field trip? All right, keep watching. I'm about to clean this rotor. Hopefully everything will work. All right, we're gonna start off using the solvent tank. Brand new rotor has oil on it. I got to get that oil off. I could use brake cleaner, but because I have a solvent tank, this will cut the oil off. I'm going to do the hat, and I'm doing the rotor surface. I'm going to do the edge, get the oil off, and I'm working the brush, okay? I'm not just putting the fluid on the rotor, but I'm working the brush, okay? I'm going to clean the other surface real good, and the inside of the hat as well. Make sure we get that hub portion free of oil debris as well. Once I'm done with the solvent tank, I'm going to shake a leg. Wait, that's just something different. All right, keep going. We're going to use hot water next, all right? Might take a minute for it to get heated up. The reason the hot water, it'll actually cut the solvent out a lot better. I'm going to work it in the fins, let that water cycle through. Oh yeah, we got good hot water now. Do the fins. The outer surface, rinse it off good. Okay, and we're coming back to the car now. Can you guys still hear me over there?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it worked? Okay.
3 minutes.
Notice I'm holding the hat, early release. You got to get ready to go pretty quick. But just keep paying attention. I'm going to grab the rotor, right? Think I can do it without dropping? All right, so we're going to grab the rotor, and we're going to slip that rotor into position. Okay. A little bit of water never hurt a brake pad, so the next thing I want to do is keep that rotor from moving around on me and me fighting it. Grab a lug nut. I'm going to slip that lug nut into place. And I torque that lug nut down with my fingers. Okay? Now I don't have to worry about that rotor moving around. I can go ahead and I can get ready to install my bracket. All right, now I'm just about ready to install my bracket, but I gotta go clean those pins, right? So I take, or not pins, but bolts. I'm gonna go over to the wire wheel. I clean my bolts real quick on the wire wheel, make sure there's no thread locker back in, and then we're good to go. You guys chasing? You following me? Okay. I got my thread locker. How much thread locker do I put on? A lot of it? Woo. 3 drops? Yeah, 3 drops is too much. I don't need 3 drops. Yeah, 1 or 2. 1 good drop. Do I want it in the middle? Do I want it up here? Do I want it down here? Yeah, I want it down here where it's going to thread in. 1 good drop takes care of it. Okay? We'll let that work on a minute. 1 good drop. That'll take care of that. Okay? I'll grab my bracket. Got my rotor held in. I've got my clips, my shaft pad shims lubricated. Make sure my bolts lined up. I can thread it in my hand. Notice this can hit the rotor now. I don't have to worry about grease getting on my rotor. Get those started. Again, early release. You can catch this on Tenner's YouTube channel. Okay. I'm going to zip this back in. I'm going to grab my torque wrench, and I'm actually going to set my torque wrench so it's ready to go. See you guys. And if you listen really, really quietly, you can hear my torque wrench click, click, and I'm torqued, okay? So we got our torque wrench in, we've got our caliper brackets torqued. Now I'm ready to install my pads, right? Now I told you I had to set this 1 pad aside, didn't I? All right, we're gonna go through and we're gonna actually clean this pad. Have any questions? All right, we're gonna go over to the table here, and I'm gonna show you how to go about doing that. I got a rag, I got a brake cleaner, and I got aluminum oxide paper. Did I say sandpaper? No, because it's not made with sand, it's made with aluminum oxide. So we've got an aluminum oxide sandpaper. Nice flat surface, and I'm going to work that pad kind of back and forth. Why do I keep shaking the paper out? Good, good, yeah, we don't want to work that material into the, back into the brake pad itself. So as we work that material off, we just kind of shake it out of the way. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to take our brake cleaner. You can do this over the trash can, you can do it over a set of rags. Okay? And then what I want you to do is to dry it off really, really quick. I want you to suck in a lot. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. It's brake cleaner. Come on. That's just not smart. Right? We can blow on it. Try not to spit, though, like a llama. And now we can take a look at our surface. You can see the surface is starting to clean up real nice, but we still got some grease that's in that pad. So we're actually going to resurface this just a little bit more. If I resurface a rotor, tomorrow we're going to be doing rotor resurfaces. Then I also need to resurface pads if I'm reusing pads. And this is how I would put a new surface on a brake pad. Okay? So if I'm going to reuse a brake pad and I'm going to reuse a rotor, and I need to put a new surface on a rotor, I would never want to take the rag and wipe the brake pad off for fear of leaving lint behind. Okay? Well, we got things cleaned up pretty good there. Okay? We got the pad looking really good. So we got the grease prints off. Fortunately, whoever put it on didn't work the grease into the pad, and so we were able to just kind of clean it off. Okay? Questions? Doing good so far, I hope? All right. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is which pad goes in which position. Which is my inner pad and which is my outer pad. Right? We got to look at the wear indicator. They are angled. All right, so it's angled this way, or I could flip it upside down, and I could put it on this way, right? So this pad can go in either place. All right. This one has my wear indicator on it. Wear indicator should go towards the inside. All right. So a wear indicator should go towards the inside. So it should go something like this. Should my wear indicator go towards the top, or should my wear indicator go towards the bottom? The rotor spins in this direction most of the time when braking. So if my wear indicator is at the top and it starts to hit the rotor, what kind of material is going to get in between my pad and my rotor? Metal shavings, okay? So where I want my wear indicator is towards the bottom, down here, so that when the wear indicator starts to ride on this rotor surface, the metal shavings go out the bottom, not in between my brake pad and my rotor surface, okay? I'll go ahead and install these. You'll notice that there's some orange stuff on the back of the brake pad. This is called disc brake quiet. Comes in a tube, something like this. What it does is it's kind of like a glue, okay? I put a little bit on there right where the caliper itself is going to ride. What it does is it kind of glues itself to the caliper. I personally do this when I do brake jobs. It's not required. It's just kind of a benefit to the customer, okay? So I put a little bit of the disc brake quiet on right here, and then what it does is my caliper is going to ride right there, and it's going to stick to that stuff. All right, it acts like glue. So when my caliper backs away from the rotor, my pad will also pull away from my rotor. Make sense? Okay. All right, I got both pads in. Now, before I put the caliper on, it's not just good enough to have the pads in. I've got to go ahead and make sure that these pads move in and out, that they float, that they can slide. There can't be too much friction there. If there's too much friction, the pad won't back away from the rotor, and all of a sudden you've burned up a new set of brakes. But it can't have enough play that we get a rattle, right? So there has to be a little bit of friction there so the pad doesn't rattle. Again, not too tight so that it can move in and out away from that rotor when it needs to. You guys have any questions so far? Are we doing all right over there? All right. I've already compressed the piston. I've used an old brake pad because this is a phenolic type piston. It's a resin type piston, which means it's a fiber type material. I wouldn't want to put a C-clamp right on there and compress this type of caliper piston. Okay, so I've used an old brake pad. I put the old brake pad on here, and I put the C-clamp on the body of the caliper back here, and I compress that piston in. All right, it's just good practice to do that, whether it's steel or phenolic, either one. I make sure my brake hose is not twisted, so when I line all my components back up, I'm good to go. I've got to compress kind of my pistons, or my guide pins, sorry. So compress my guide pins. And then I'm going to line those up. Some guide pins on vehicles you're going to work on, guys, will have flat spots. And those flat spots on the guide pins right here will have to be lined up with the caliper body inside there. So just kind of watch that. This one is a hex nut. So if I needed to, I could grab a wrench. I could hold the guide pin from spinning. And then I would be good to go. Okay? Do I need Loctite on my guide pin bolts? No, I do not. Just on my bracket bolts. Okay? And again, I knew I was doing a disc brake job on this vehicle, so I've already looked up my brake torque specs ahead of time. For ease and quickness, I'm just going to snug up just take the slack out. I'm not tighten anything. Just to make it a little quicker for you. Again, can't tell you how important torquing is. We're going to go ahead and torque this and set it to the torque specific that it should be. Quick, right? Which might be 12 foot-pounds. Quick, tight, or it might be 15 or whatever the vehicle calls for. And then the last thing I want to do is make sure that my guide pins move back and forth, move the caliper up and down, make sure it's not rattling. And you can see, I'm going to straighten the wheel out and pull my S-hook. I leave the S-hook in here. All it does is risk getting the tire, right? Puncturing a tire. So we've had them leave the shop before with that. Make sure that you get the S-hook out before that tire goes into place. Okay? You can see I've started to compress that disc brake quiet in there, and so that glue will set up and it'll hold that pad tight to that caliper body. Okay? All right, here we go.